watching Rogers TV.
Good evening and welcome to Westdock. Today is Tuesday, February the 13th, and we've got another great show for you. And right off the top, I just want to remind you about some cool events happening in the area this week. Of course, last week we had the great venues of the region on to tell you about the exciting events. But this weekend, we can all look forward to the grand opening ceremonies of Cornbrook's Winter Carnival. So the Friday of Carnival, there's a celebration in Bowwaters Park where there'll be live music, and Leaf the Lucky will emerge from his snowy hut. And there's usually like at least 1,000 people down there for that, and hot chocolate. It's a great time, so you should check it out. Also, Jib Fest, Atlantic Canada's biggest collegiate wintertime festival, is happening this weekend. It starts out Friday, and there's a free country show on Broadway at the Palace on Friday for the opening ceremony, so you can check that out with Jason Benoit. As well, just to let you know, coming up at the Arts and Culture Centre on the 15th and the 17th is Music Man, a production being put off by Canberra Arts, of course associated with the Graham Academy. So lots of great things coming up. It's going to be an entertaining weekend here in Corner Brook. On today's episode, we'll have two guests in studio for you. And the first guest, who's here with me now, somebody we've had on the show before, a local musician with several big projects under his belt now, and a recent iteration of a band that is extremely impressive and very fun to see. So to tell me more about the projects underway and a little update musically, Mr. Dave Peddle, Reverend Dave of Reverend Dave and the Sin Eaters. How's that?
Excellent, Dustin. How are you, man?
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
It's one of the best parts of hosting the show is sometimes I just get to catch up with people that maybe I wouldn't be able to have the time or whatever opportunity to catch up with otherwise. Yeah. So it's great to be here.
Likewise.
So catch us up, man. We've introduced you before. We've introduced other albums and works in the past. Since the last time we talked, there's some new people in the band. There's some new projects. There's some shows on the horizon. So you can kind of start that off wherever you want. But give us the update.
The most exciting thing is today we're starting releasing singles from our album, which is Live at the Garrick. Yeah. And we were at the Garrick Theatre last summer, and we recorded the show both on video with Roger Monder and Brad Tuck, and also, of course, you know, we have the sound from it. So we decided we were going to do a double album of the songs, and the album is coming out on vinyl, right, which we're excited about, and Live at the Garrick Theatre, Reverend Dave and the Sin Eaters.
So was that recorded at an actual show? Or was it like you went in there when the room was empty and the Garrick recorded?
Nope, live show, and very little tampering with afterwards. A couple of things was cleaned up. Yeah. And it was mixed and mastered by Glenn Thomas locally. Glenn, who does superb work.
Pretty excellent reputation for mastering.
Yeah, and he's done all our albums so far, and this is our third one. And we're sort of, we're very happy. Well, I mean, you were there right at the beginning as well, right?
Yeah,
and we did
the Dark Water Days.
The Dark Water Days. We did the release on Rogers TV virtually, right, in the midst of COVID.
Such strange times.
It's just, right, incredible. But since then, since 2020, we've had 2 Music NL nominations for, as a folk group, and we've had 2 ECMA nominations for the same album. Beams of Love, which got nominated for Best Blues Recording and Best Country Recording, right?
Excellent.
So it was exciting, surprising too. In a way.
Yeah, well, that was a big full circle moment. Having been there in the early days when, during the pandemic, you're recording music videos and productions in your basement, to a couple of years later, sharing a cocktail together at the hotel at the East Coast Music Awards, where you guys were nominated. So it was really impressive how things escalated in that short period of time.
Thank you. And I mean, you had played no small part in that, and we're grateful, man.
Some small part. How did you end up making the decision now after 2 releases, which were done, I guess, fairly traditionally, you know, studio recordings?
Yes. Yeah.
Even though one of them was a studio set up in Bombay. How did you make the decision to say, we're just going to do it live?
Well, it came about pragmatically in a way in that we needed some video content. And just in terms of if you're applying for festivals or shows or what have you, people like to see how you appear on stage.
Yeah.
So it was in that light we thought we'd at least get some video footage. And the band, when it was at its largest, was 7 pieces. And so we thought, okay, if we have everybody together, if we're practiced enough to put off a show, well, let's get as much from it as we can.
Yeah.
And I was talking with Roger Monder, and he agreed to come and film it. And
that's Up Sky Down?
Yes, absolutely,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And fine fellow to work with, and did a real good job for us. And then once we had the video, we were talking with Glenn, who did the mastering for the video, and he said, you know, probably got an album here. And we thought, well, okay, we didn't have anything in the works at that point for a new album. So we decided to make it into an album, and we thought, you know, let's do a double vinyl album.
Yeah, well, I have to wonder if even back then you thought, someday I'll have a double album.
Well, no. So it was, yeah, but how, you know, that's cool, it's fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, the musicians, like we had a great crew for the Garrick. We had Noah Hamilton and Kev Hamilton, Andrea Monroe. We had Daryl Parrott, Scott Shepard, and Craig Young.
Wow.
So it was a real strong group, strong performance. And I mean, the band is more, almost more like a network now than it is like a single band. If I go to St. John's, for example, we went and we played a showcase at Music NL recently. Not everybody from Corner Brook could go, so we have a drummer we work with in St. John's, keyboard player, fit some of the other parts of the band together. Cool. Right? We have Ford Burden on guitar.
Amazing guitarist.
Right? Amazing guitarist, a great fellow.
Very creative guitarist.
And also we're building, so we have the Rev Dave Trio, which is a whole nother version of what we do, which is me and Ford and Kendra Parsons from Trout River, right? And so she is now going to take part as well in the Reverend Dave and the Sin Eaters.
So I was just listening. You thankfully sent me one of the tracks, which I had to listen to this morning, and which was "The Beast Is Coming," which was off the Dark Water album, right? So is that an indication of what people should expect off the Live at the Garrick? Is it songs that were previously released on your other 2 releases that you're now doing live, or is there some new stuff in there?
Yeah, so I would say I think 18 songs made the cut for the double album. I think so, maybe 16. But there are 3 covers, and the rest of them are drawn from the albums that we've released. It was really exciting to be doing live versions, because that moment when you're on stage and when it either happens or it doesn't. Yeah. Right? And every now and then the sort of inspiration you get, the feeling you have, the connection with the people around you and the audience, and what kind of day you've had. Mm-hmm. The whole thing can bring out new versions of the tunes. And there are some, I would say there are 3 or 4 versions of the original tunes that I would think the live version is really the standard version now.
Well, I mean, even the one that you sent me, The Beast, it was like there's harmonies and things that are on that I certainly didn't hear or didn't jump out to me the same way on the original recording. Certainly, they probably just weren't in the original recording because there was no Andrea Monroe at that time, in the mix. So
that's right.
Yeah, so it's exciting to think. It was really like listening to, even though I was very familiar with the song, it was like listening to a new song. So.
Yeah, and I really hope that, I really appreciate hearing that, and I hope that's the case, that people who, for people who like our our tunes. They have they can see this new palette that we're working with.
Yeah.
And then the covers we picked are also kind of indicative of where we're coming from. So Folsom Prison Blues, you know, we have this version of that, and Will the Circle Be Unbroken, which kind of
like classic gospel.
Classic gospel, and I wrote an extra verse for it. Just
of course.
And I hope that's not too arrogant. And also Whiskey River, Willie Nelson's Whiskey River, right? Which, you know, you get those 13 strums of the G chord at your beginning, and it's exciting to be playing those.
But again, pointing to some of your core influences, and those names are artists that you've been sort of shouting out since your first album and paying tribute to the style and sort of the inspiration for some of these tracks. Yeah. But one thing I'd like to ask is, now a few years later, you've been out there, you're playing coast to coast. What sort of response have you had to just like the group overall? Like, what are people, because I know people are often surprised by the act, right? And maybe it's because it's Reverend Dave and the Sin Eaters. They're expecting one thing and they come out, you know, it's a full-on rock show. Do you get any interesting feedback sometimes from people about being surprised, or maybe asking you questions about, you know, are you a real reverend? And how often does that stuff happen?
It happens all the time, which is neat. Like, we were at one point, we were going to altered the name. We were thinking of a new branding exercise, and we had been playing with a secondary group called the Varmints, and that had some traction. But Daryl Parrott, a drummer, put his foot down and really leaned in heavy. Really, Reverend Dave and the Sin Eaters thought it was more original, thought it had a kind of cachet, and because I was concerned that people were going to think that, oh, here's this, you know, Christian rock group. Yeah. Now, I mean, I'm a Christian, whatever that means, but it's not a Christian rock group, you know? So sometimes people, when they hear the name, they think it's going in that direction. And like you say, there's a bit of a surprise, a bit of a revelation in a way, that is something broader than that. Yeah. And what we did is we said, okay, if people are going to have that feeling about it at first glance or something, we're just going to hope that they can become familiar enough with it to realize the bigger context that we're working in. And that seems to have happened, right? Yeah,
it's clever, right? And I do think it's interesting, kind of sneaky, and it's just a great way to get people kind of talking, right? And engaged. And listen, if somebody does think it's a Christian rock show and they come out and buy a ticket, they're probably still going to be like happy. They'll be pleased with the experience that they had. They'll hear some sounds like they might hear a classic gospel tune, right?
Right. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So, and it is a show for everybody. I think it's, and I've seen you guys now at this point play in a lot of different sort of environments, right? And it just seems to be a pretty universal sound, in my opinion. So anyway, now in the last moment of our interview, because I just got the light from our producer, 10 minutes go so fast, what is going to be the next opportunity for the people of Western Newfoundland to come out and hear what we're talking about here now?
Well, we're playing at Retro on February 24th with Reverend Dave and the Sin Eaters, and we're also playing at the Legion on March the 30th. We're doing a double show with the Mill City Mavericks. Yeah. And our part of the show is going to be our tribute to Willie Nelson. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah. Are they doing a tribute as well, like, or?
I think they're doing their. It's kind of their regular country tribute, and they play, you know, Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard and variety things around that. You know,
awesome.
Sort of outlaw stuff.
So 2 exciting shows coming up over the next few weeks. One at Retro, one at the Legion. Something for everybody. I really want to thank you for coming down here. Good luck with everything else.
Thanks a million, Dustin.
And do keep sending us over these releases as they come through, and we'll try to get them popped onto the episode.
Excellent, I love it. And our the Beast is coming, is being released today, actually.
Today?
So this is very fortuitous.
Exciting. Thanks for coming down and releasing it with us.
Thanks a lot, Dustin.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in studio with our next guest. Stay tuned. All right, and now we're back with our second guest for today in studio. Some of you might have noticed that there's a new superstore in town. Long Range Outdoors has just opened up on Confederation Drive, and it looks to be, as I said, a superstore, which is bringing all manner of rec vehicles, brands, outdoors equipments, and more under one big roof. And here to talk a little bit more about that and explain sort of this transition that's happened as two large rec dealers have now moved in together. We have Jamie Buffett, who's the General Sales Manager at Long Range Outdoors. Thanks for coming down, man.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, I had to, because this is a big new change in town, right? And I know some of our viewers have had some questions. Friends of mine have asked, like, what's going on in there? So I thought, why not just get it from the horse's mouth?
Yep.
So off the top, can you just explain sort of big picture what has happened now between the several rec dealers in Corner Brook coming together?
Sure, yeah. So Long Range Outdoors is a merger of two existing power sports dealerships in Corner Brook, Western Motorsports, which has been under the Western Group since I feel like about 15 years.
Yeah.
And Twin Peaks Motorsports, which has been, downtown and Commercial Street, under different names back as far as Scott's Motorsport and Ford Honda for probably 30 or 40 years. Came under the Western Group about 3 years ago. And then the vision became to put all of them into one store, and that is makes things efficient, allows more opportunity for staff, and allows us to run it a little more smoothly. Mm-hmm. So it's been a couple years in the making, and January 15th we opened as Long Range Outdoors on Confederation Drive.
So then you move all of these, so we see before where we had two locations with sort of competing brands and things,
Sure.
So now that's all in here together. It does seem natural that just must make things so much more convenient for the shopper who's maybe coming into town from out of town.
Yes.
They can, if they're looking for a snowmobile, for instance, now they can look at 3 different manufacturers, 3 or 4 manufacturers, right?
3, yeah.
And so run us through, I guess, just again, broad strokes, the types of products that are, people should expect to be able to come check out there.
So we are still primarily a motorsports or power sports store. So ATVs, side-by-sides, motorcycles, snowmobiles, boats and marine, watercraft, outboard engines, and a number of different pieces of power equipment like generators, snow blowers, lawn equipment. So we pretty much cover everything that anyone would use recreationally.
You service all those things?
We service all those things. We sell them all. We have a fully stocked parts department. And then the other part that we're looking to grow, which we've, and the reason for the name Outdoors, is that we have a whole hunting and fishing department, basically a general merchandise department. So we have like riding gear for motorcycles and snowmobiles and ATV. We have hunting, rifles and ammunition and camouflage gear, spotting scopes, fly fishing gear, all those sort of things. So without it being the primary focus maybe, but the reason for Outdoors is that typically everyone buying our power sports products is buying it for some reason to go outside. They want to go hunting, they want to go fishing, they want to sightsee, they want to tour the island on side-by-side or whatever it is. It's some need to get outside. Versus in different parts of Canada, you might see more sanctioned racing where people are buying things to race, snowmobiles, motorcycles, things like that. But for here, it's about general enjoyment of the outdoors, so we have everything.
That is really interesting, actually. I never considered that, like the difference in the customer of, say, the Halifax rec dealer and the Corner Brook rec dealer. So, and I know it's not exactly a straightforward answer, but I mean, you've been selling these, motorized rec products for over 20 years now.
Correct, yeah.
You've got to really know, I guess, the average consumer of Western Newfoundland. What seems to be the most popular motorsport nowadays? It seemed to me growing up that every single person had a snowmobile, but now as I look out, I see people, the streets are filled with side-by-sides, right? And there's now new groups, riding groups with lots of members riding dirt bikes and things.
Yep.
What is the number one?
I would say the number one would be, to generalize it a little, would be a 4-wheel product. So it was always ATV for a long time, and now it's really transitioned to side-by-side. So, because you can get 8+ months out of a wheeled product. Typically late April to November, you can ride a side-by-side or an ATV. And it's just so universal for, people who moose hunt and they want to get their moose out, or they're snaring or trapping, or they're using them to go to remote cabins, or they're plowing snow with them, or they're just sightseeing, or as I mentioned, like they're going to maybe tour the island on the rail bed and that sort of thing. Snowmobiling, was way up there, but as the winters get a little shorter, climate change is we're definitely noticing. It seems to have slowed a bit, and the trend. There's still a lot of people buying snowmobiles, and we still sell a lot, but it seems to be there's a lot more faith in that four-wheel product for the long term.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess bang for the buck, you're going to spend more time or have more of an opportunity to use a four-wheeled vehicle.
For sure. And something like that's a big investment. So if you can get 8 months out of it versus 5 or 6, maybe, then that's, if you have to choose one, hopefully they would get one of each. But
ideally.
Yeah, ideally. Yeah.
Well, that's a really interesting sort of perspective on that. And how about you now? I know your background seems to be more on two wheels, even including bicycles at one point of your career. And since you've been involved with Twin Peaks, I've noticed from the outside, a lot more community forward events and groups and things. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I have a long history with bicycles. I did grow up on dirt bikes as a child and got out of it a bit. Without having many people riding, I got heavily into mountain bikes and that sort of thing. I spent some time working at Cycle Solutions and into more of a high-end bicycles. And when I came back to Twin Peaks, being a dealership that had Yamaha snowmobiles but didn't have a big model range, I was looking at ways that I could grow the store. Products always limited when we were coming out of a pandemic. So, but dirt bikes were in supply. So I kind of touched base with some local riders and we started riding, and I've been watching people that were doing it in videos and drone videos, and I got, this is like riding my mountain bike, but I can, relate it to my profession. So we just started riding, and we kind of got a community together now that we clear trails and ride together, and we kind of do like a weekly Thursday night group ride.
Yeah.
But I've also done some community events, so to help grow that sport, because I'm passionate about it, but also, benefiting the business. We did a Kids Learn to Ride at Marble last summer, where we put 50 kids through 1-hour sessions to learn to ride a dirt bike.
That seemed to go over pretty well.
It did, yeah. We had more demand than I could supply for time, and so I hope to do it again this summer, maybe twice.
Yeah.
We did that during the Jigs and Wheels festivals. And like I said, I'm passionate about two wheels, so I was trying to get some two-wheel events into that festival where there's already a lot of interest in ATV and side-by-side. Like you say, you'll see them going around the streets and that. So
yeah. And one thing, shouting back to the Learn to Ride event, was, as a parent now, I've got a 4-year-old at home, and I remember having this conversation with you about, look, if you want to ride with your kid in the future, here's how you can now start them, right? So whereas before a kid maybe would have to be big enough to ride a 50cc dirt bike, now you've got these electric balance bikes and things like that, just all kinds of different ways to get people sort of get their skills up in a pretty safe and affordable way too, right?
And this is a way to try it. I think at the time last year it was $25. We provided all the equipment, all the bikes. They even got a food certificate to get a hot dog at Bishop's Tavern at Marble. But you can have a kid's runner bike where there are no pedals, but this is electric powered with a twist throttle, so it teaches them throttle control so they can transition to that dirt bike. And we did have a lot of parents who had children interested in dirt bikes but had never ridden them themselves, and it was a great way if they didn't have anyone else to show them. We had a bunch of experienced riders from our dirt bike group that were willing to volunteer, and went over very well. We had a great sunny day. It was perfect.
It's beautiful. I remember, hearing the comment at the time that there's a lot of parents out there, there's a lot of dads and mom and dads who maybe ride themselves, and they would love to be able to go out, and invest in, say, a little dirt bike for their kid. But often the barrier is just not knowing if they're going to be into it, if they're going to enjoy it, and it can be, So that's what I think is the ultimate. I'm sure that event converted to a sale or two.
It did,
I'd like to think, right? Which is very interesting.
Yeah, and it was like you mentioned about community engagement. I'm sure there were a lot of people that tried it that maybe it wasn't for them, but we did have all of those kids bouncing and riding two-wheel motorcycles by the end of our session. So we were pretty proud of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then just in the last moment of our interview now, can you explain one really interesting thing about the store is sort of the image behind it when you drive by now, especially the other day when it snowed and that outside caught all that snow.
We had a lot of snow there,
Yeah, but it looked like it was by design. I was like, did they build the building to catch a snowdrift like that? So it looks like Snowy Peak. Can you just quickly explain sort of the design that went into the outside and the inside and where that thought came from?
Yeah, so there was an architect hired for that building, Carville and Helm, the same architect firm that did the Hugh and Draw Hotel.
Yeah.
So they pulled a lot of things from like the outdoors and the local region, the Long Range Mountains, images from Parks Canada and things like that to not generalize us to the West Coast or Western, but to relate us to an area, Long Range Mountains, which are very few areas called that in the world. So if someone searches online for Western something, they might get West Coast of Canada or the West Coast of the UK. So this really helps draw traffic from the right places. And the vision was to feel like you're in the outdoors when you're inside the store. So we have murals on all the walls downstairs from local photography from Drew Kennedy. And these are very large. These are like 12 feet high, 16 feet long. So you see a side-by-side parked in front of that mural, and it looks like it's outside.
Brilliant.
So, and then the colors inside are, tied into the outdoors and that sort of thing. So it's really worth a visit. Even if you're not in the market for something, it's worth coming and look around. It is on 2 levels. A lot of people don't realize that. So make sure you're aware of that. Make sure you tour both levels.
Absolutely. And so for all those folks out there who are currently riding or using, Honda and Yamaha and what other manufacturers? Just thinking about the servicing now that people will now be going to this place to get their equipment serviced.
So we have Honda, Yamaha, Polaris, Arctic Cat, Mercury, Suzuki, Husqvarna motorcycles, Argo, Amphibious, and ATVs.
Yeah.
I think that's all of them there. I think it's about 10 manufacturers. Plus we have Echo chainsaws as well as a power equipment line.
It's very cool. So just because of part of people's service schedules and some of these vehicles, I guess they're naturally going to now have to come into the store over the next few months to get their oil changes and things. So I'm sure you guys are really excited to introduce this place.
And it's an easy store to access. It's really near everything that most people visit in Corner Brook, Murphy Square, Confederation Drive, all the car dealerships, the mall, the plaza, I should say. So it's very easy to find if you're coming from out of town.
I would say a far superior location to either of the 2 stores before.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Jamie, I want to really thank you for coming down, man.
Oh, you're welcome.
Please, in the future, when you have other events that are being put off by Long Range, please let us know and come down and we'll have a chat again.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And that was Jamie Buffett. We're going to take a little break and we'll be back to wrap up this episode. Stay tuned. And that's it for today's episode. I want to thank Dave and telling us about the new project by Reverend Dave and the Sin Eaters. Don't forget to catch them live at Retro on February 24th. As well, I want to thank Jamie Buffett for giving us the download on Long Range Outdoors, which is now open on Confederation Drive. An absolutely beautiful shop, and I encourage everybody to go down there and at least poke their head around a little bit. You won't regret it. That's it for today's episode. We'll be back next Tuesday evening with another episode of West Talk. Have a great night.
Provide feedback on this show or find out how you can get involved. Email us at comments@rogerspv.com or visit our website.
You're watching Rogers TV.
I still remember the games. The laughter, the footsteps through the hallway. I'll never forget the challenges.
Every day I come back from work, it's always like this. We're yelling in front of the kids.
I'll never forget the help we needed. How far we've come.
The Hit UK show is back with a brand new season.
I'm so happy to be back.
12 unusual suspects go undercover.
I was blown away. That was amazing. It was popping.
Can you unravel the clues and guess who is behind the mask?
Kim Cattrall.
It could be Sting.
Okay.
Everyone, who's behind the mask?
Why? The Masked Singer UK. New episode Saturday at 6:30. Only on Game TV.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Was that 4 or 5? He's lost count and still thinks he can drive. Do you think he knows that when he is caught and charged with impaired driving, he'll lose his license and a lot more? If he gets in his car, he'll face costs exceeding $20,000. Does he realize he could have a criminal